We're live. It's official.
All right.
All of the molecules of the internet have worked together to come to this point right here. The wonders of modern technology, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you that are just joining us, I see a bunch of you guys in the chat. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I am joined by Mark Griffin over here on my left, which I can't believe I pointed the right direction. That never happens.
You got
I
it.
always point the wrong way. And Diamond Dave, aka David Pierce, down below. Unfortunately, Ryan and Aaron both could not make it tonight. Ryan is just sick as a dog. That poor bastard is like coughing up a lung. It's not good. So he is out for tonight, and Aaron had a prior engagement for the holidays. So it's just me, but that's okay. So everybody that's joining us tonight, I know a bunch of you are like throwing up comments right now, and I love it. We appreciate you guys being here. It's been kind of a weird couple of weeks around here because we've had, the SEMA show was just like all of the splash from that was wrapping up, and we were getting ready for the PRI show, and then PRI was going on. I still had races I was announcing in the middle, and it's just been nuts. So I was looking forward to a relaxing week before we head into the holidays, and then compressed air supercharging exploded all over the internet because Kyle at 1320 posted a video from PRI, and it has been just a storm of info. You guys, I know, Dave, I know you were like at some of the things that people were saying. Mark was more like, it's fine, it doesn't matter. And of course, I'm the guy that's like, hey, if people are talking about you, you're doing it right. So, but before we get into the details of this, because I know people have a ton of experience. Oh, by the way, I'm already getting requests for Tina instead of Dave. I'm just saying it already. They're like, yeah, Dave's good. We love him, but where's Tina? Like, yeah. So, but anyway, before we get into the specifics with Mark and Dave on compressed air supercharging, I just want to make sure that there are a couple of things that are out there that are absolutely truths, and everybody needs to understand while they're watching this. I have personally seen these systems work in both the truck that is behind Dave and in Mark's Camaro on, dozens and dozens and dozens of runs. I've announced events that they've raced at. I've been there filming events that they've raced at. I have seen these systems in practice. I've seen them fill the bottles in the pits. I've asked all the questions. I have geeked out about this stuff for, well over a year. I don't know, 2 years of doing this, whatever it's been. And this is really remarkable stuff. So I hope everybody understands that what we're going to talk about here is, yes, it is big tanks of compressed air being shoved into an engine to provide boost. And tanks like that one that Dave's got behind him there. And some of you guys are going to go, like some of the comments that were interesting that were on Kyle's video were, this isn't new. They've done this before. There's no way that it actually works because it would equalize the pressure once the throttle blades opened and all these things. And here's the deal. We're not going to say that people are stupid for making those comments, because the reality is that they're right if it wasn't for the technology that is currently in place that allows this to work. Okay? Exactly. Is that a fair statement, Mark?
That is a fair statement. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think that the number one thing that people, well, I shouldn't say it. I think the top two things that I've heard, number one is the car's going to weigh 8 million pounds because you got all these big giant tanks of, full of compressed air in them. No, 2024.
So just a fact. Yeah, a fact.
Yeah.
A bottle's 24 pounds, filled with 3,300 PSI. It adds 14 pounds to it. So it's 38 pounds, and we have two of those, and the bottles are 205 cubic feet per bottle. So we carry about 410 cubic feet, and that'll run right now. That'll run a 670 at 210 miles an hour in the quarter. So with two bottles, with air
which
to air
is
left, with air to spare.
right. And
And those are facts.
that
Those are
car
facts.
that we're talking about is your Camaro that,
Correct.
you know, is on the featured image for the podcast, and we'll show it here in a little bit. That is, and yes, Bobby Bennett, you are correct. Bobby Bennett says, "Hey, isn't this the system that Mike Thermos's former partner in NOS was working on?" You are 100% right.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk a little bit about that history here in a little bit as well. But one of the things when you talk about the pressure of the bottles, I saw a comment where somebody said there's no way you could do that much pressure without $1 million compressor and all these things. But that's the same pressure as is in a scuba diving tank. Am I right?
That is correct.
So all you're using is a scuba tank to fill these, or a scuba compressor, I should say,
Yeah.
to fill these. Now, you might use a higher volume compressor, right? If you were trying to fill a filling station, let's say, if you were going to run 4 or 5 cars out of one trailer, then maybe you might have or multiple compressors. But generically speaking, this is a readily available scrubber and compressor that you can buy at a jillion different places around the world. Am I right?
That's correct. I mean, it's one of those things. I mean, we use Bauer compressors. They're kind of like the Cadillac. I know Dave has a larger Subaru compressor,
It's
but
about
yeah, these things the small Bauer compressor that we use, it'll run. I have a Roadster, a Don Davis Roadster that's on air also. It's a single system, and I'll run both of those at Midwest, and it keeps up with both of them back to back runs as we go. So the support, that's the easy part of it as far as the compressor and the filling with air and that process. So
And you said that the tanks that you're using are how many cubic feet?
they're 205 cubic feet. They're carbon fiber, and like I said, they're about 24 pounds a piece. We have this bottle that's setting up behind Dave there. That's our
Yeah.
older bottle, and it's a 38-inch bottle by 8 and a quarter, 8.5 diameter.
Right.
And the new ones, and that's 155 cubic feet. But the new bottles that we have are, like I say, 205 cubic feet. They're 9.5 inches around, and they're shorter. They're 33 inches long. So they really look like these nitrous bottles in some of these Pro Mods are huge. I was
Yeah, I was
shocked.
going to say. Yeah.
So I'm mounting. I have 2 new bottles that I'm going to mount in the on the passenger side, and I'm going to stand them up. And they'll
Yeah.
be. We're designing a new bottle clamp, and so they're really going to be just killer. I'm so excited about these new bottles. So
Well, and how long does it take to fill one of those? Or well, no, not one. Since your car runs on 2 tanks, how long does it take between rounds for you to refill the tanks?
Dave, you want to talk a little bit about what y'all do with that?
Yeah, we do it off like a cascade. We have a cascade system just like you would do with the breathing air. So we have in one of my trailers we have 3 big mother bottles. They're like a big argon bottle. They're special bottles that are like 6,000 psi rated. So we have 3 in the one trailer and 4 in our other trailer. So once she makes a pass, she comes back and we start the filling process. Mark does it a little differently than I do, but we fill them fairly slow. We could do it in about 3 minutes. We normally do it in about 10 to 12 minutes. That way we keep the heat down, as you're releasing the air and then you're compressing air back into the car or the truck, it's going to build up some heat. So we do it slowly so we don't have a heat increase. And then when we get done filling, we fire the compressor up, and it takes roughly about 25 to 30 minutes to refill the trailer back up.
Gotcha.
We
So
usually
that we could actually, if we went to the track and we had the truck was full, trailer was full, I'll bet we could make 3 or 4 passes without even having to fire the compressor up.
Yeah.
Right. Now, so you said how you do it a little different than Mark does it. So Mark, you're doing yours over a little more time in order to really make sure you're controlling that heat. Is that right?
Well, normally what I do, and it's one of those things you get in a routine, and like Dave says, usually I'm doing it in 300-pound increments, and I usually take about 20 minutes to do it. I mean, it's according to how many people I've got with me. Usually I'll put somebody on compressor duty and filling bottle duty. If I'm by myself, it's really no different than pulling the front end off and filling the fuel. I mean, it's one of those things. It's very simple. And you can, if you're hot lapping, people always ask, how are you doing this? Because it's, you just take that. Usually when you make an 1/8 mile pass at 3,300 PSI, we still have between 15 and 1,700 pounds left in it. So we're not emptying the bottles out.
Right. So you're not going from zero.
No. So whenever we're just topping it off, and like Dave said, we use a cascade system to where we just, I'll use one bottle and equalize that one bottle into the bottles in the car. So, but like I say, usually about that 15 to 20 minute process of filling them, 300-pound increments keeps it, I've checked them. We've wrapped them. Whenever we first started out, we had ice that we put towels in and we'd lay it over it. And anyway, it was us not knowing any better, just how to manage it. We don't use any of that. We don't put them in water. I never remove my bottles. They do not come out of the car. They're stationary in the car. And we use it's a 6AN hose. It's a special hose, 6,000-pound burst hose that you just basically just plug into the back with a quick disconnect, and then you start your process. So, I mean, it's so simple.
The hose to fill it with, the small hose, it's like a -6, or it's actually a -4.
It's actually a -3. It's actually a -3.
Is it a -3?
Yeah.
I forgot.
Yeah. So the reality is it doesn't take any more time than filling nitrous bottles. In fact, probably less time than filling nitrous bottles. I mean, I know that like if I have, I've always run nitrous and everything. If I have like 10 or 15-pound bottles, and I've made a couple of passes on them and then I'm going to refill them, unless you have 2 pumps, you're going to take, 10 minutes or 15 minutes each one to fill, anyway. And if it's hot outside, you need to chill them and all that stuff. And you know what I mean? I mean, so really this is less work than that.
You're gonna spend more time cooling the transmission off than anything.
Right.
The engine will be cool.
Okay, so hold on. I'm making a list of things, okay, that we're going to discuss as we go. And now cooling the transmission will be one of them because there's something here that people aren't thinking about. I know you are, Dave, but people at home are not thinking about, and we're going to talk about this. So, okay, so the number one thing was the bottles, all that. The number 2 thing that everybody always seems to remark on is that there's no way that this thing is going to ingest all that air, that it can't be boosted because the front of the engine is open, and meaning the throttle body on the front of the engine. But and Dave's going to show us what it goes. Now, this is This is for a single system. But
This
if
is
you look at this, so there's throttle blade or what do you guys call this valve? You guys call it
That's an ejector.
that's it, the ejector. So that throttle blade there, folks, closes when the air starts injecting so that the engine is only running on the air that's coming from the tanks. And so by sealing that throttle blade, it means that it then can have the boost that it's going to have. Does that make sense to everybody that's watching? So that's how the boost doesn't just escape out the front of this thing. Okay. I know it doesn't look like what you're confused by is it's not a hat or something like that. But here's the thing, unless it's under boost, the engine is just a NA, whatever the hell it is. So if it's a LS3, it's just a NA LS3. If it's a 509, like's in the truck there, it's just a NA big block 509. Whatever the hell that thing makes is what it makes. And until you shove compressed air in it and slam that blade shut, at which point it is now under boost. But that means that you're doing a bunch of things without boost, i.e., driving around the pits, or if this was a drag and drive setup, which you guys are going to do with this truck, you would just drive it around. It's just an NA big block. It doesn't even care. Like, it's amazing. And there's some other things about the tune-up that don't require you to put different plugs in it for the drive or different fuel or any of those things also, by the way. But we'll get to those things. God, this gets me so excited. I can't even tell you. We could be here for like 3 days talking about all this stuff.
I do want to point something out.
Yes.
So you go back, talked about this system that Mark and I both run is capable of 2,400 horsepower. We're not running it at that level. This single system is about 1,400 horsepower. So it'll supply 1,400 horsepower worth of air. We're not running it at max capacity, neither is Mark. So there's still horsepower left on the table for both of us. Just want to clear that up.
Well,
2,400.
And your 509 in that thing, you said, is like a 600 or 700. I mean, it's I'm going to say it's a pooch. I don't mean that as a bad thing. It's just a cruiser, easy, nothing fancy, big block that's just got good solid parts in it.
Yeah, that's right. I had to take and I had to bump the timing up on mine to 36 degrees just so I could do a good burnout. You know, it was it makes a whole whopping 600 horsepower, and again,
that's because you're doing the burnout without any of the boost.
Right. That is just naturally aspirated, and then whenever I get done with my mid 430 run, I drive it back. Everybody else is pushing, and I'm just waving on the way back, smiling.
Right. Now, I love it. I love it. Okay, so we're going to talk about a few of these other things, what all of this means, but I want to keep talking about the technology first. I want to get into the tune and the fuel and the plugs and all those things, but first I want to talk about why this is different. Yes, this has been attempted before. Mickey Thompson and a variety of other smart people have tried to do this in the past with varying success. The shoving compressed air into an engine is not the rocket science part of this. Compressing air and putting it in tanks, not rocket science. The boost control module and the other associated hardware that is controlled by it are what make this possible. So what is that first off, Mark? What do you got in your hand there?
So this is our regulator. Matter of fact, this is the regulator out of my Camaro, and this is what controls it from 3,300 psi down to 0 to 150 pounds to make our boost. And it's plus with the dome pressure. How Carl and Dale developed this thing with the dome pressure, it's plus or minus a pound. I mean, of control. We can control it that precise.
So and that's true when you're looking at your map sensor data on your data logs. you know 100%. I mean, you can absolutely follow your boost line and you know how accurate it is.
Yep.
It is, yes.
So you do not
That
have a falling boost curve or a rising boost curve or any of that unless you want it to be.
that's essentially a wastegate, like what a wastegate is for a turbo. It
Yep.
has that control.
Yes.
Hence the dome pressure and all that
That's
as well.
correct.
Yes. Yes.
So, okay, so the regulator has lines that go to it from the tanks,
Yes.
and then the lines from the regulator go to the ejector valve that we were just looking at.
So let me show you this. I've got this other piece here.
Yep.
So this is called a shut-off valve. It's a lock-off, shut-off. So from the regulator that I had, there's on this particular one on a dual system, it has two 20 AN hoses coming out. And we, with Dave and I both, we run two of the shut-off valves. So basically, the only maintenance on this whole system is about or not about, but a $20 rubber valve in here that shuts off. This is low pressure. Usually, whenever it's at idle or set, from here it's about 140 pounds. So this is where your boost. Then here, this is our Bosch valve. We use, quite a few different things. I know Dave was familiar with it, but it's got a butterfly inside that controls as we go through the run. This controls basically drive-by-wire whatever we ask for that butterfly to open up, and that allows our boost to really controls our boost as we ask for it. But this is it.
Now, if you get off of the throttle, is that directly is that do like in a turbo car where it just would do a blow off valve, or does it just control that throttle blade in that electronic throttle body, if you will?
Yeah, so it follows the TPS, and like I have my TPS at with the cast unit set at 70. Anything below 75% of my TPS, Dave was filling up the ejector. What that does is that releases the air pressure off of that, and it allows it to open up. Anything below, if I have to pedal it, now, if at the end, if I know that I'm out there and I don't want to lose and I'll let off, I may pedal it, or if it's close and it follows right along, it'll shut and go right back on boost.
It'll make boost in 0.15 seconds.
Yeah.
That's how fast.
So you can pedal it if you were out there and you were in a no prep race or whatever. It's a heads up deal.
Done it many times.
And you got to do it. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. I was not a chassis guy, and as I turned it up, I really sucked. So I pedaled it a bunch, I'm just saying, I've learned a lot through the years.
We have to.
So.
Okay. So for people that are just joining us, so Ray Shannon asked, how long does a bottle last? And we talked about this a little bit ago, but for people that are just joining us, there are multiple bottles depending on the vehicle. So in the case of Mark's Camaro, it has 2 bottles, and it is a dual system, meaning there are 2 inlets into that ejector valve. A single system could use just 1 bottle or multiple bottles. It wouldn't matter. If you had multiple bottles and were using a single system, then conceivably you wouldn't have to refill it between every run, or you could swap from one bottle to the other, I suppose. But
that's right.
It takes minutes to refill the bottles, and there's no expense other than the electricity of running the compressor or fuel if it's gas powered, because it's just air. And so it's not like nitrous where you're paying by the pound of nitrous to refill. This is just the regular ambient air, albeit cleaned and scrubbed so that it doesn't have the humidity in it.
So let me say one thing about usually the thing that people start talking about this system, the compressor. I mean, you can buy all kinds of compressors. Matter of fact, I think the one that Dave bought, that a nice Subaru compressor. He bought it used from a guy that was going out of the paintball.
It's
business.
a Bauer
Oh.
compressor with a Subaru
engine.
electric
Gotcha.
car.
Yep.
So the compressors they're expensive. They're you can buy cheaper ones anywhere probably from $1,800 to $2,000. But if I'm going racing, I want to make sure I have a great compressor. So
Right.
a nice Bauer compressor is anywhere from $6,000 to $8,000. But how much is a cylinder of nitrous now? I don't know. I remember we used to get it really cheap, but it's not cheap anymore.
I literally was just looking up on my phone what the price of nitrous is right now. Because I hate to admit this, but like probably 75% of the nitrous I've ever run in my stuff, we don't pay for, because we have, we get sponsored for nitrous when I lived in SoCal fills, right? I don't have that here in Texas, but I haven't been racing as much. So whatever. But I was paying like when I have had to pay, but this is pre-COVID prices were like $7 or $8 a pound. I've been told that it's $10 a pound or so. If you know, and you're in the chat, what current nitrous prices are, let me know. But
so there's an expense. Yeah, there's an expense to everything we do. We do this crazy thing we call drag racing that we love, and
because we hate money.
That's right. That's it.
We hate money.
So
we want it to go away as quickly as possible.
Right. What we're doing with compressed air, it's just the compressor part is just a piece of it.
There you go. David Vassar, $8 a pound at Nitrous Outlet.
There we go.
Nobody would know better than David. It's him and his company. So it's great. And David, thanks for joining us tonight, dude. Seriously appreciate it. And I know that Aaron's already talked to you about coming on the show. I'm looking forward to it. So that'll be good. So if you look at $8 a pound, and let's say you used, 5 pounds of, nitrous on a run, or 4 pounds of nitrous on a run, whatever, which, by the way, is not a function of how much you're spraying, but also of how long it takes that thing to get down the racetrack, right? So the reason I say that is, let's say you were spraying 125 shot on a car that takes 12 seconds to go down the racetrack. You're going to use the same amount of nitrous as somebody that sprays a 250 shot on a car that only goes 6 seconds. You see what I mean? So it's a function of how much you're spraying and how long you're spraying it for. So I mean, that's going to add up, right? I mean, again, I'm a huge nitrous fan. I love me some nitrous. But yeah, every run, it costs money for that.
Yeah, that's where all of this started with NOS and Deb and Carl, and so it's in the family. We're not far from it, but man, we sure are a whole lot easier on parts than nitrous.
Well, okay, so now that we've talked about the components, which one thing I did have somebody that sent me a text. So just so you, for those of you that maybe don't know, when you're talking about AN lines, the number, like if it's a -6 or a -8, or in this case, a -20, that are the big supply lines, that is referring to the number of 16ths of an inch. And so I don't know why they did that. I don't know when they decided this was how it was going to be, but it was way before World War II. So AN fittings are measured in 16ths of inches, and it's a number. So a 20 AN line, or a -20, is 1 1/4 inches. Okay, that's what it is, right? Yeah. It's and 16 and 4/16. So
1,400 horsepower worth of air can go through there and feed the motor.
Yeah, which is awesome. So let's talk about the differences since we're on the nitrous side. So nitrous, if I remember right, is somewhere around like negative 140 degrees or something like that. Like when it sprays out of a nozzle out of the bottle or whatever. You guys are like negative 150. So it's all about the same as far as temperature there at the bottle. But the difference is this doesn't mix with any fuel or anything. So that temperature stays low longer, I guess is the way I would put it,
The
right?
longer it's on, the colder it gets. And so you
Yeah.
got to remember that nitrous, you've only got that small line. This is completely running off all of that air coming out of the bottle. So all the air coming out of the bottle, that's negative 100 and whatever out of the bottle, is feeding that engine. The nitrous is only feeding a small portion of what's going on.
So it legitimately, the actual inlet air temperature inside the intake manifold can be negative degrees.
Tell them what you found.
I have logs with negative numbers.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so I guess it really doesn't matter how hot it is outside. Like there's no such thing as a hot day because it doesn't matter because it's only breathing the air out of the tank.
If it's 4,000 DA, it doesn't matter. If it's 0 DA, all the same. The only thing that's going to get you is track conditions.
Right.
You know.
So, okay. So Mark, you race your car in an index class.
Yes.
So you're not paying attention to the weather anymore. You're only paying attention to the track conditions.
I gave my weather station away to some needy person.
Hey, I'm going to tell you why we switched to this. We were in Tulsa 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I was creeping on Mark's time slips on the time slip app. I seen him go 450, 4.50 something like 9 times in a row. Whether it was in the morning, heat of the day, cool of the night, and it just blew me away. And we're bracket racers too. We're index racers, and we're heads up racers. But that is what I had to have it.
Yeah.
Now, and go ahead, Mark.
Oh, did everybody come back
you?
there?
Oh yeah, no, we're good. I was going to say, what was it that made you want to do this from the beginning? I mean, what made you decide you were going to try this?
You know, I'm just crazy and I just like spending money, you know. No, one of my, I was baited. I have a guy that does my motors down in San Antonio. I went to pick up a set of heads or something, and he had that bottle. It's probably that bottle right there that I sent Dave. It was sitting on his counter, and I walked up and I said, "What in the heck is this?" And like I say, I was baited, and it went from there. I had a 72 split bumper bracket car that I raced and mild chassis, and I was going to put it on that, and then it went from that to buying a new chassis and putting a complete car together, the one that I have now, in 18 months to do this. And our first March of 20 was our first outing with it. And and that next year is when I knew when Dave Pierce saw that, I recognized the look in his eyes, because I looked the same way whenever I know, because I looked in the mirror. I thought, what am I doing?
Right.
But anyway, I saw it in his eyes, and you see some people that just, they lock on it and they understand it. And this thing is awesome.
Some people get very confused. What liquid is in there? Is that pure oxygen? What they're confused. They're confused.
Right.
Just breathing air. It's just air that we breathe. That's all it is, with moisture taken out of it.
Yeah. And that's when I say the scrubber is the thing that's removing the air from it, or not the air, the water, the moisture. And that is what it does. If this was a scuba tank, it would do the same thing, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's because as you compress the air, if you have moisture in there, it will literally make, liquid
freeze.
in the tank.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
So
yeah, it's with the compressor and the dryer system on it, we don't have to worry about that. There's filters, cartridges that we change out, usually 2 a year or so. But yeah, it is dry, dense, cold air, consistent. Did I say cold air all the
yeah.
time? I mean,
I
it's
And
have I have
and
another
you're
minimum.
and you are going to be on 5 years this March of running this system.
yes, yes,
Wow.
yes.
So
Mark went to
you told
Houston.
me, Mark, that you had over 330 runs on your Camaro with this system. And that's at 1,800 to 2,000 horsepower. And Dave, you figured that you've got 150 runs at 1,500 horsepower
We
with your
we
system.
started out with the LS motor in this truck last year, so we were only going
Yeah.
like 5 flat, 5 teens on a
Yeah.
small tire at 3,300 pounds. Then we made a bunch of changes, put a big block. So overall, we have about 150 to 160 passes on the system.
Yeah.
So 100 this year with the big block, and then
Yeah.
50 or 60 last year with the small block.
Yeah.
And we on this 540 that I've got in it, we pulled it down to look at it after 150 runs and put it back together. And it's got, like I say, 330 runs on the same motor. This is not this is the same motor.
Yeah.
Basic the shelf parts.
Yeah. We use a 15-year-old set of Brodex heads. We built an inexpensive, it's got good bottom end, it's got good stuff in it. But it's a $15,000 motor that we've made that many passes with, and we're changing for next year. We're going to aluminum and doing aluminum rods. We're going to do some different things. So,
Okay, so let's get into some specific questions now. Because I know these questions will get us into the other technology side. So, this is a great question from Russell Luckett. It says, is there a safe recommended minimum RPM to inject the air? In other words, is it similar to nitrous where you don't want to inject it, at low RPM because of excess cylinder pressure? That's a really good question. So is there an RPM minimum that you have to lay into this thing?
I think it'd be the same as a turbo or a supercharger. You don't want high boost at low RPM. You're going to lug the motor and knock the rod knock the rods out. So our two-step is about 4,500. Mark's is probably similar. Tina goes in, stages the truck, and then about 0.3 before the trans brake lets go, the system fires and it makes instant boost, goes to the two-step and leaves all in about 0.25 seconds.
And okay, so that's where then that's a perfect segue into the next deal.
That's right.
So here's why this is also really good. Everybody that's on here knows that I am a fan of horsepower. I love all power adders, right? I love turbos. I love Prochargers. I love Vortex. I love roots blowers, screw blowers, nitrous. I believe nitrous should be on all of those things. It is in my shop. So I'm a fan of all of it, okay? But two things. When you stage a turbo car, 99% of the turbo cars on the planet, when they stage, are not staging as consistently as they could because they aren't spending the time to get the creep exactly right on your bump box. And so you get these things that just jerk, and some of them are violent, okay, when they bump them into the beams, like insane. And then those guys are usually the ones that are complete idiots who will claim that, oh, that makes the car leave better because I leave on the rock. Dude, you're smoking crack, okay? If you think you can time it to leave on the rock, go on with your bad self. You're racing on a different level than the rest of us, so go to Mars where you belong. Whatever, okay? But in this scenario, the reason why this is really good is because you're staging it NA. Yep. So you're staging this thing in essence the same as you would a blower car or a nitrous car, in that you're not having to bump in. You light both bulbs, put it to the wood, let go of the button. In this case, when she goes on the two-step, there's a delay. Then it fires both sets of of airlines and
Fires
the
the
light.
first stage, and then immediately after that, the second stage. About 2.2
Okay, so
different.
boom, boom, and it hits both of them, and then she's letting go of the button because the tree is coming down.
She's already let go of the button. The delay box holds power.
Oh, right.
Brake.
Yep, gotcha. That's awesome. Okay, so here's why this is important, folks, if you're watching from home. It matters in bracket racing for sure, right? In order to be consistently staged in the same place so that you can get your reaction time that you need in order to win. But it also matters in heads up racing, because if you are in too deep and you let go of the button and go red, that's going to suck. If you are not in deep enough, quote unquote, it would slow down your reaction time. But in qualifying, especially, you want to stage as shallowly as humanly possible. Okay. And if you don't understand why that is, put that in the comments and we'll explain that on another show, because that gets into measurements and a bunch of stuff. But trust me, the more shallow you stage, it matters in qualifying. It will help your ET in mile an hour. So being able to consistently stage is a really big deal. And this is proof of how that is a whole game changer, because again, you're staging an NA car. There's no
Tina went from turbos bumping in to this, and her lights are killer. Like this whole year, you can ask anybody that we race with. If she does go red, it's been by 1 or 2, and that's probably been my fault for tightening it up, too much.
Right.
But she's been 10 or better, like almost every pass for the last 6 months. Like, I'm not kidding. It's very impressive.
That's awesome. So here's the other advantage, though, because Dave, as the turbo guy, we talked about cooling down the transmission.
50 per second on the two-step.
Yeah, 50. If you hear that, folks, 50 degrees per second. Okay, so if you talk to Mark Mickey or any of the other big name transmission builders for pro mod cars, they will tell you that the transmissions in a pro charged car or a screw blown car last significantly longer between maintenance and everything else than a turbo transmission does. The transmission's the same. There's no difference in the transmission itself, but the turbo car has to pre-stage, then get up on the two-step to build boost to bump in so that they're ready when the tree comes down. And that is just murdering the converter and the trans fluid, like just destroying it. There's an entire industry that exists to cool transmissions just because of turbo pro mod cars. So it's truck, not good.
We've out of the 100 or so passes that we've made this year, we've changed transmission fluid 1 time. Only because I changed the stator in the converter.
Gotcha.
And we do it nonstop, with the turbo setup in
it. Travis is saying that it's definitely Dave's fault if Tina slips up. I love Travis. That's good. Thanks for joining us too.
I love Travis too.
Gage Gilbert has a question, and this is a good one. Says, my question is, if I apply one of these, what updates in the chassis and safety equipment do I need to change for this application? That is a great question. And the reason that's a great question is because if you put a blower on your car or changed it to methanol, it would require different safety stuff because it's, a boosted application. And that safety stuff can include everything from driver safety things to some other stuff on the car. Because this doesn't have a blower, there isn't a need for that, but you are under boost. So what do you do rules-wise? How does that fit in there, Mark?
When we first started with Midwest, we were they just considered us a blower car in
Yep.
the top sportsman. So that's where our weight was at. You know, whenever I first started building this, that's the first thing I did was contacted the tech guy for Midwest, which was also over NHRA, which since we use NHRA rules.
Right.
And he knew this was coming. I mean, I sent him pictures, told him what I was doing of the bottles, sent bottles, blah, blah, blah. And so we ran Midwest, and they knew they didn't give us really any problems with our bottles, how they were mounted. They looked at them. We use our high pressure hose. We use a 20,000 pound burst aircraft hose. So they're very safe. They're in, on every aircraft that you fly in, basically.
Right.
So we use the best stuff that's out there, but really the test was in 23. I did my first NHRA racing, and I guess that was I'm trying to think. It was in Houston, the last divisional that they were the last one that was there. So every tech guy in the country was down there for that last divisional. And of course they kind of freaked out because I needed a chassis cert. So anyway, I got that done, and they were looking at it. What is this? And anyway, long story short, they ended up calling the guy, and I can't remember his name.
Lonnie Grimm.
Lonnie Grimm.
There
Yes.
you go. Lonnie.
Yep. Yeah.
They called Lonnie and said, "What do we do with this?" He said, "Oh man, this guy's been racing, Midwest, and he's fine. Just look it over. Everything. I've seen the car." So anyway, they checked it off, and off racing I went. Ran the first 200-mile-an-hour quarter with a compressed air, ever. So anyway, it was cool. They talked about it a lot, but we did. Since that, we did 3 national events, and it was the same with NHRA and 23. So it was good.
So one of the key things to that, discussion on tech is always fuel. Okay. If you run gasoline versus methanol versus nitromethane, which also has a little bit of methanol in it, that changes some of the rules, right? As far as what's requirement, especially for the driver, okay, with regards to number of layers in your suit, boots, et cetera, et cetera. You guys are not running methanol in either of these combos, correct?
You don't have to.
No.
Okay, so why don't I have to? What can I run these kind of numbers?
Go ahead, Dave.
Well, the air's coming in so cold. That's why everybody uses methanol, because it's got such a cooling factor. But the air's coming in so cold, we don't have to. In fact, the guys back in California, the engineers, Carl, he's told me a couple times, you probably could get away with running pump gas in it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that. I'll let Mark do that. But I'm not willing to take the risk. We just run 112 in it. I'm not sure what Mark's running. He's run something similar.
112. I've run 104 in it, avgas, and it's no difference. I've done C23 in it.
You don't have to have the big, huge injectors. You don't have to have a lot of fuel on board. There's just, you don't have the methanol milking the oil. You don't have the methanol hard starts when it's cold. It's, it's just all around better.
That's awesome. Well, so then that goes to the next question, which is Don McGinnis. Don's been doing drag and drive events since the early days of Drag Week. Don is asking, can this be used in a drag and drive situation, given you have to have an air compressor to refill the bottles? So let me answer this a little bit. So yeah, easily, Don. In fact, it makes me want to do this bad. If you had a pickup truck, you could just have the compressor in the back. If you were one that was going to pull a trailer, which most everybody does now on drag and drives, you could easily have the compressor in your trailer. and have that thing running to compress the air in the tanks while you go down the road if you wanted. But the reality is it doesn't take very long. So if you just had your trailer set up with a mother bottle, quote unquote, and you're compressing into that and then filling into your tanks in the car or your truck or whatever it is, yeah, it's the short answer is easily. It really wouldn't be any different than if you carried a mother bottle for nitrous or a bunch of extra nitrous bottles or whatever. It's just not. It's not a big deal at all. And so it'll work. It'll work no problem. And be really, really good.
So I talked to Matt Frost, and he's considering it Rocky Mountain Race Week, and we're going to do that with my blue truck. Kenzie's been driving it, so we're putting this smaller system on that. And I talked to Matt this weekend, and he has told me that it's no different than him carrying nitrous for somebody. So he said we can put the compressor or extra bottles if we want to carry extra bottles to switch out. If we need to do that, he will carry them for us. He does that for people. He carries their nitrous, or I think he might carry some fuel for some people, but
right.
So I may have him do that. We're not 100% sure what we're going to do, but we're going to do it in the blue truck with compressed air.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
With Kenzie driving.
Yeah. And now Don, of course, is asking, so are you going to have a compressor in a certain white Chevy station wagon? He's meaning mine, of course, which is right over there. It already has a compressor in it, and it has two, but they're for the air ride, not for the but I'm down. I am down. Damn you guys. Shut up. I don't need to drag race that car anymore. We have another project that's getting all the drag car goodies. So maybe we'll have to do this in another project for sure. Ryan is chiming in, says he's not dead yet. He's sicker than hell, but he is not dead yet. So I'm glad to hear that. So let's go back to the fuel though. So detonation is caused by two things predominantly. Incorrect timing, where cylinder pressure is at its peak, and it's, firing too early, which is trying to stop the piston instead of pushing the piston down. It beats the bearings out of stuff, et cetera, et cetera. One of the other reasons for pre-ignition that happens quite, commonly is heat, big heat, right? Like it's why every 80s motorhome with a big block in it just rattled its brains out, climbing a hill in California because, the thing was running at 240 and it had, it's got a little tiny camshaft. It's running at 4,500 RPM. So the cylinder pressure is like 8 million. I mean, all the things that you want to make detonation were there, right? But in theory, like you said, I mean, you could just run 100 octane easily.
It might make more power because
that's true.
We don't know.
Yeah. So what kind of compression are in each of your engines that you've been running with this?
We have 11 1/4 in this one.
Okay.
Mine's 11-1.
Okay.
So let me explain something. Whenever I started this thing out, I was kind of like the chassis, the car would probably run 4 O's, but it was just the chassis guy, which was me. I was just terrible at it, but I kid with Dave because I get to teach him a thing or two since he went to big tire, so yeah. But I'm telling you, with this fuel injection, I mean, I was a carburetor guy all my life, and I didn't even know what a map was. I thought a map was something you looked at to get there, and not building a map for I didn't know what it was. But I've run this thing fat, I've run it lean, I've run it every way you could imagine, and it's got the same rods in it after 330 runs. So that just tells you how easy it is on product. And Dave can finish this story.
I I have ran this thing. I've run it at 10.8. I've run it at 13.4. It doesn't seem to make a difference. It still shows that it's fat. I'm scared to go any leaner with it. We've got 38 degrees of timing in it. It probably wants more. I'm guessing 45 or 48, maybe what we end up with it. We're bracket racing, so everybody's got to understand we're not max effort racing this thing. We're trying to do the same thing every pass. That's the game that we're doing. Now, somebody else is going to come along and somebody's going to put it and give it everything that and they're going to do the research, and they're going to have the maximum amount of timing and the maximum, or the minimum amount of fuel to make the maximum power. But we're just trying to do the same thing and keep it together and just go have fun and win some races.
So let's talk spark plugs and timing. So you're telling me that you do not pull timing for boost in this application?
None. We actually add a little bit up in the upper RPM. So
I do.
So is that because the intake charge is so cold that you actually have to lead it some?
We have to give it a head start.
Yeah. Dude,
Still not even burning any cadmium off the plug. Like it's amazing. I was talking to Jim Parkinson, and we were, working it out. He's, everybody just, again, it's all brand new. Nobody's dealt with those kind of air intake temperatures. Yeah. So we don't know what it's going to.
When this system, whenever it started out, whenever Carl and Dale started this thing, they had 1,400 horsepower in mind. So that first ejector that Dave showed you, that's where this was at. They didn't care about. I said, no, I need to make 2,000 plus.
Right.
So Carl got on it. So can you imagine, with 2 ejectors? I mean, we flowed with our flow bench 6,000 CFM. So that's, you figure horsepower about 80% of the
So
CFM.
you're telling me that this thing could support 5,000 plus horsepower if you had 2 of the double ejector valves?
And yes, and 2 regulators. I mean, we can.
Literally 2.
We're flowing 3 now
system.
with the dual unit. So
so that's yet to be on paper, and in theory, we think it's possible. Me and him, probably not, but somebody will at some point.
Right.
Yeah, somebody will. It won't.
Somebody
be
with big money. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying it. Hey, Eric Dillard, get off your ass and we'll send you a bunch of stuff, because I think you need to be testing this at Proline. Like, I'm just saying it, Dillard. I think we could get a shipment coming your way, and you need to be trying some of this out. I'm just saying.
That'd be awesome.
It would be. So Richard Edward asked, what about E85?
We ran E85 last year with the small block.
And any issues?
The only reason I left at E85 is because when we switched over, I had everything set up for the turbos, fuel pump, injectors, tune-up. It was easy to make that transition right into compressed air versus turbos with everything that I already had going on. We didn't change anything with the engine. We just bolted the bottles in, bolted the ejector on. In fact, we had the truck before was rear mount turbos. So I just used the boost tube that came through the cab and put everything in the back so I could keep the weight right in the truck, because it's an extended cab. If those who don't know, it's a 128-inch wheelbase truck. And so there was no difference.
That's cool.
I had to pull fuel out, but.
Right. Well, and I wondered, because I know that, ethanol attracts moisture so much. So I wondered if those cold temperatures would get into any issues with that, but you answered the question. So that's good. So Randy Young has a interesting question, and I'm going to get to it second, but NHRA Stock is asking, what is the lifetime of the bottles? And can they be recertified, and do they have to have an SFI spec or what?
No SFI spec. They come with a 5-year, and they can be recertified.
Okay.
You want to see an up close? I can grab this bottle and bring it
Yeah.
up.
Yeah. So the other question was, and this one's Randy's asking, what rule changes could you see coming with this system? Honestly, Randy, I don't know why there would be any. It's really no different than any of the other power adders. They just have to decide which one it's going to be most similar to. And in Mark's case, Midwest made it to where it's the same as a blower car weight wise and all that. Hold on, let me get that to be in the big layout.
Yeah, these are a
here.
Luxford. These are new bottles which are built by Luxford.
They are carbon fiber.
Yep.
And you can see they're pretty light. I mean,
yeah.
That particular bottle is 22 pounds.
Yeah, so nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, a 10-pound nitrous bottle, when it's full, weighs like 24 pounds, if I remember right. So, yeah.
Probably similar.
Yeah.
Special valves that they developed, they're high flow. It's got a bigger neck on this bottle to evacuate the bottles and
inch and 5/16.
Yeah, they're special bottles, but they're basically aircraft bottles. I was told that these kind of bottles are what they have for like in emergency in an airplane if they have to air up the ramp to slide down.
Oh yeah, okay, gotcha. Yep.
They're for operating any pneumatics that they have. Helicopters have them. So they're super strong and super safe. So
Doug DeLay is saying you certify the bottles just like you would a nitrous bottle. If you take them to a scuba diving shop, they hydrotest them and can get that done for you. So there you go.
Okay.
Yeah. Brian Lum's asking a good question. What is the weight of a setup? So what is the weight of an entire dual setup like is in your Camaro, Mark?
So, and Dave can help me out here also, but my setup with, of course, I was running 3 bottles, and that was for some quarter-mile events that I went to. But since we have this new bottle, I can run 2, like I'd said. So overall setup, and you're looking at hoses, you're probably looking at around 125 pounds. Your thought, Dave?
I think that's
about right?
I think that's safe to say. The regulator.
The regulator is 24 pounds.
Okay. So your hoses, the hoses that come up to the front, they're -20. They're just a standard hose.
Yeah.
So I've got probably 2 8-foot pieces of hoses from where they attach to the regulator up here to the front.
Yeah.
So I would say Mark close on that, 125 pounds total.
Yeah. So I mean, compared to a pair of 80 millimeter turbos and the extra amount of tubing and everything that is going into making the hot side, right? Because the headers are going to be different and all that, bracketry, bracing, etc., to hang those turbos because they can't just hang off. Yeah, wastegates, blow off valve, charge pipe tubing, and that would be assuming you were running on methanol, so you had no intercooler. You got to be still getting close to that weight. I mean, maybe 20 or 30 pounds less. But if you are running an intercooler and then the associated ice water that would be in it and all that stuff, it's definitely going to be way more than that. Like I cannot imagine that a normal turbo setup would be any lighter than that.
I wanted to bring something else up too that we should have talked about. When Mark's going 430s, he's only making like 15 pounds of boost.
Oh, that's right.
Mid-course, we're only making like 12 pounds of boost. So
I forgot about that. The boost numbers are not the same.
That's
so
right.
that's one of the other reasons why some of this doesn't compute for a lot of people, is that in order to make the power number that Mark's making with a set of turbos, he'd have to be running, 28 or 30 pounds of boost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And now, or have a whole lot more motor under them, right? One or the other, or both. And you don't with this. I forgot about the fact that the boost numbers are low. Now, you can do more.
Absolutely.
You just don't have to. And
we don't have to, and the extra wear and tear for what we're doing. Now we will. I'm going to crank this thing up next year. I'm going to try to hit the 20 pounds of boost mark, and I think it'll go 20s. I think it'll go 20s. I don't really care that we go faster than that. It doesn't, Tina's driving. We want to be safe, and the pound, the horsepower per pound of boost is way different than a turbo. I struggled when we first put it on, because I was trying to leave on like 10, 11, 12 pounds of boost. And I'm trying to leave on and on small tires, and it was trying to leave like on 1,500 horsepower. It's like, wasn't having it. So I had to back it down to like 6 pounds of boost, sometimes 5 pounds of boost, depending on the track. But, it's like,
because it's making 25 pounds of boost horsepower levels if it was a turbo car. So you were trying to leave on the same boost you would have with the turbo, which is way more power now than
my really good friend Dave Pierce is hard-headed. I kept telling him, you got to turn it. Well, I don't know.
Well, having turbos for so long, my head is just, I just had to back it down. I just kept having to back it down after about
well,
it was a rough time. It was a rough time. That's all I'll say.
We got you through it though, brother. You did good.
Car Camp is saying, wouldn't it just be called Compressed Air Charged over Supercharged, since words have meaning? Sure. Whatever you want, Car Camp. Whatever you want.
It's actually the name of the company.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's the name of the company, is Compressed Air Supercharging. So, okay, so this is an interesting question. Wickham's asking, what is the exit PSI from the regulator for 10 pounds of boost? So I think what he's getting at is, when it leaves the regulator, is it already at the 10 pounds, or does it need to read what the map is doing? Because once it gets to the engine, it'll be different, right?
It's different when you open that throttle blade and open the regular throttle, blade up here, and close this one, your air equalizes. So that 118 was in there before everything turned on, it gets equalized to whatever's in the engine. And depending on if you're on the two-step or the release of the two-step, and the engine takes a big gulp of air, that pressure drops. So it'll be going down track. It's about 80 to 90 pounds of pressure still back there at the regulator on the cold side, not the cold side, but the low pressure side. Right. There's still more boost to be had, but we're regulating that down with that drive-by-wire throttle body.
Yep. Okay, Jeremy Bonnet is, now you're starting to think here, Bubba, and I love it. What would happen if you sprayed it under carburetors on top of the blower just to cool the intake charge, similar to a nitrous plate?
Yeah. We looked at
the blower off. We don't need that blower on there anymore.
Right. Now, and it does work with carburetor.
Yes, it does.
It will blow through a carburetor. We know that because it's already been on before with that little diffuser thing, aka a backwards merge collector, that goes on top of the carburetor, and it goes through a blow through. And actually, Jeff Smith did a cool story about this years ago on the 69 Camaro that they used for some of their development work at West Tech Performance. So that is absolutely will work on a blow through setup. So if you are a carburetor guy like Mark was, that's okay. You can do it that way too.
They have a part for that. I've actually got this Motion Racework piece I just ordered. This is going to bolt right to our, in the blue truck is got a, a carbureted intake. It's EFI, but right now it's naturally aspirated. It was turbo a few years ago, and Kinsey, my daughter's driving it. So I bought this from Motion. This will bolt down. This is one of their Icon throttle bodies, and I'm going to adapt this, and I'm going to put the compressed air on that truck. So
that's cool.
That's why I have this.
Yes.
So let me ask this. If you so I know that you use MS3 Pro is what you're using on your truck, Dave. What fuel injection are you running on your car, Mark?
Holly.
Okay.
It's a Holly Dominator, and on the Roadster I use a HP.
So is the Dominator controlling the elements of this, or is it only interfacing with the boost control module that is part of the CAS system?
So on mine and Dave's both, we use the CAS BCU. But MS3 Pro, they're working with Dave.
They're fixing me. Yeah. They're going to have a box that will control that drive-by-wire. All the drive-by-wire is it's percentage open times RPM. So
it's controlling this.
As RPM is coming up, the engine's going to require more air. And so you'll use that to let more air come in. So you have a flat boost curve. And then once you get the thing dialed in and you have a flash, like if you want 8 pounds of boost, I know sometimes when you don't have it set right, at the shift, as your RPM's coming down, boost will fall off if you don't give the engine more air. So once you get that adjusted, then you start playing with the dome control and you can give it even more, on the launch, before the 60 foot, after half track, whatever you want, it'll do it.
Yeah.
So Randy has a great question. What's it cost?
Mark,
I mean, what ballpark, what is somebody looking at for a single versus a dual system?
So, and there's some decisions to be made. We do have aluminum bottles and we have carbon fiber bottles, but with a single unit, it's around $12,500. That is with carbon fiber bottles.
Yep.
And then with a dual unit with carbon fiber, you're looking at around 17.
Okay. Yeah. So, and you can run it with whatever fuel injection you already have on your engine, or if you're a carbureted guy, and running a blow through, you can do that as well. You would need a blow through carburetor. So if you are currently running nitrous, and you're carbureted and you're doing, whether it's port or a plate system, either way, this is not the same. So you do have to have a carburetor that has been converted to be a blow through. And that's not a hard thing to do, by the way. So that's easy. It's 2024. All those parts are easily available nowadays. Wow. There's so much going on here. It's, what are anything else that is like just screaming at you that are the things that people have commented, like I said, since Kyle put the video out and everything?
So I just want to, I've only run turbos, a little bit of nitrous, aspirated. Watching guys running blowers, run superchargers, turbos. We still have turbos on the Nova. I'm a nobody. In my opinion, this is by far the best power adder that there is. Nitrous guys might get upset at that, but with all that this will do and the cold air, if your fuel solenoid shuts off and doesn't inject fuel on your nitrous pass, what's going to happen? Chad, what's going to happen?
Oh, you're going to melt.
If this shuts off and there's an issue, you're just not going to make any power. That cold air is coming in. The tuning window is wide open. We haven't really found any issues. I mean, again, that's my opinion. I'm a nobody. everybody's going to disagree. You know, has it been proven up to 3,000, 4,000 horsepower? No, not yet. Just because nobody's done it yet. It's
Yeah.
going to. So that's my
Well,
opinion.
and
Mark, what's your opinion?
That's my opinion. I mean, it's, you know, I don't like to work on things. I mean, I do. I don't like to, I shouldn't say work on things. I don't like to mess with the motor end of it and rods and, oh my gosh, this has been so much fun to have to not have to work on something week in, week out just to go racing. Whenever I mean, I change so much stuff on my car, but that's for in sake of research and development. So, you
right.
know, one week I may be on it and the next week I may be not, but it's not, most of the time it's self-inflicted or it's me changing, doing something different on this system to prove, hey, we've done this before. So, but as far as motor, oh my gosh, I mean, it's so exciting not have to work on this thing. It's awesome.
Well, and
It's
Randy is
very
asking how
consistent.
consistent it is. And Randy, you missed when Dave said the reason that he looked into this was because he literally was creeping on Mark's time slips on the time slip app at Tulsa. And regardless of the heat and the air and all this stuff, Mark was running running 50 passes, 650 passes over and over and over again.
For
Uh,
450.
Oh, sorry, 450s.
Yeah.
I thought it was 650s in the quarter, but 458 mile passes over and over and over again. So the answer is it's incredibly consistent. Earlier, somebody asked about Mark running this system in Denver. So
That's a great
Yeah.
story. Tell them,
in
Mark.
Denver, this thing will run the same as it does anywhere else on the planet,
That's
right?
incorrect.
Yeah.
That's incorrect. It'll
So,
run
What does
faster
it do
up
in
there.
Denver?
It'll
yeah.
run
So
faster.
we went to the last race at Vandermeer.
Yeah.
And anyway, down at Houston, that's whenever we ran a 682 at 205. And anyway, of course, there were some pro stock guys that were the mom and dads and all them parked over next to us. And one of the pro stock guys come over and I said, hey, you want to drive something that's faster than yours this weekend? I mean, it's one of those things. They instantly lose 25% of their power.
Oh, yeah.
He
And
said that backwards. He was slower in Houston than he was in Denver. Make sure everybody understands.
Yeah.
That.
So I ran a 680 at 207 in Denver, and that's because the air is thinner. We were at Vandermeer at the 5,000 feet.
So
but anyway, yeah.
So the reality is that the terminology has always been said that blower cars are better because they bring their own atmosphere, right? So everybody has always said that blower cars are the way better to go, if you're going to be in Denver, because again, they bring their own atmosphere, but they are still compressing the atmosphere that exists.
Mm-hmm.
The reality is that all of those blower cars are still sucking outside air in and shoving it through the engine. When one of these says that it is bringing its own atmosphere, it is literally bringing its own atmosphere, because this engine, from the time it goes on the two-step and starts going down the racetrack, is only running on the air that is coming out of the tanks. So it is always sea level when you have a compressed air supercharger car. I mean, that's what you need. The motto is, it's always sea level if you're running a CAS system, because that's it. You guys get to determine what it is.
So at Denver, the air is thinner, so his car was cutting through the air better,
Right.
faster,
Yep.
and there was not as much pressure, up against the exhaust on his zoomies. So the
Yes, that's true.
So that's why his car, I believe, that's why his car is faster up there. Of course, Denver's no longer,
Right.
but Albuquerque or Vegas or any of those. So right now, I guarantee you, Mark, if he went and had to go make a pass and he had to dial in his dialing. He knows right now what that's going to run, no matter if it's 100 degrees outside or 60. I know what this is going to run. I guarantee what it'll run within 1 thou without a test pass.
Mark said earlier that he got rid of his weather station because it's no longer a use to him. And so as long as the racetrack's good, you're fine. You don't have to worry about any of the rest.
That's going to be the kicker is it's hot and greasy. You know, these big tires like slip around. Our radials didn't do that, but you know, as much. Right. But
yeah, Travis Cannon, he just asked if I was going to run a 399. Why don't you come be my chassis guy and tuner, buddy? Come on, let's do it.
Dude, now that is a really fun pairing I'd like to see. Because Travis is a bad man in making stuff go fast.
Come on down.
There is no doubt.
Let's do it together.
Yes, you let me know. I'm coming. Wherever I'm coming. Yes. Look at, he's saying we can make it happen. We need to make that happen. Smart. That would be fun.
That would be great. Let's do it.
We need to look into test days at XRP versus the Motorplex and make that happen, because that's halfway between all of us. So it's perfect.
Yep.
Just do it on Mark's car, not ours.
Yeah, we're with you, buddy. We're with you.
Travis is going to make 2,400 horsepower. So whatever.
Yeah,
let's do it.
You better hope that motor's.
It's supposed to be a good one.
That was good.
I love it. So for those of you that are watching, I'm going to put the website up on the page as well. I'll put it in the comments. So if you guys are looking to check out Compressed Air Supercharging, you can do that on the website. It'll also be here in our little ticker. But yeah, you guys, I mean, definitely check this out. It's a really cool system. It works really good. Again, I've known Dave and Tina for years. I've known Mark for the last probably 2 years, I guess, because I met him through David running this. And we were talking at PRI, and we were talking about the attention this got. And there's so much misinformation out there and misunderstanding. People just don't know. I mean, and that's okay. We're not bagging on anybody. This is weird, right? This is not like a bunch of this is mind blowing. Like, it doesn't make sense. And then all of a sudden you start thinking about it and it makes absolute sense. It's so logical and yet outside of our normal circle. And so that's why it's sort of hard to, wrap your head around this stuff. But, if you, okay. Pat and Linda Neal says, love this. I remember Mickey Thompson making 2,700 horsepower in 1964 with a 354 Hemi on scuba bottles. Very similar. Yes. He was working on making a system like this work. And again, the compressed air is not the trick part,
They have dynos back then in 64, I guess.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yep. The big deal on these systems, again, is the technology in the valving, the regulation, the application, etc. That's what is trick about this. It's really, really straightforward once you realize what each component does. Again, if you're just joining us, tanks full of compressed air at 3,300 pounds, 3,300 PSI. The air comes out of those tanks into a regulator. That regulator then regulates that down to somewhere between 80 and 120 pounds, depending on how your tune-up is. By the time that air gets into the engine, that will maintain a 10 to 20 pound boost level, and which goes through that ejector valve that Dave is holding there. That is open when the engine is just running to do your burnout and whatever. But when the system is active, then that throttle blade closes. So the engine is running exclusively on the air that is coming out of the bottles. So it is pretty trick. Niels is asking, or is saying, then it is cost effective, and it is. I mean, it's not
You might mute
cheap.
me.
It's not cheap. There's no doubt, but when you look at long-term expense, it's not a bad deal. There's very little, if any, maintenance.
Yeah.
It's very easy on the engine in comparison for the power level. So, if you're trying to make 2,000 horsepower and the boost level that would require on using turbos or a Pro Charger or whatever is going to put a lot more stress on the engine than it does in this scenario. So, yeah, it's pretty trick.
Yeah.
It really is, and it makes an exciting system. I got to tell you, I think this thing is super trick. I said so the very first time you showed it to me. I think Dale and Carl are geniuses, and I love what has come out of this for sure.
So on our website, it's undergoing a facelift. So be patient, but you can go over and look at there's some good reading on there. Anybody that wants to look at that. And then also they can come over and visit me or contact me through Messenger, Mark Griffin on Facebook. So just look me up there. Anybody that has other questions or inquires, please feel free.
And I'm open for questions too. We're happy to
Yeah.
help or
Yeah.
answer any questions.
Absolutely.
You can get through me, through David Pierce or Tina Pierce Racing. Call me.
And I'll do this for tomorrow on Bang Shift. I'll embed this podcast into a blog item tomorrow, so it's on there, and I will put in there contact info for Mark and for Dave. So if both of you can just send that to me either through Messenger or text, how you would want, whatever you want, whether it's email or Messenger, whatever. And then I'll put that in the blog item. And that way, when people watch the replay on this thing, if they want to go and contact you guys, they can do that for sure.
Very good.
Shelly and Kurt Riffle are going, how light of a pro mod do we need?
There's no rules on it.
No
Yeah.
rules.
How fast you go, you might get ruled to death. So
You might. I'd say build it nitrous light, because then you can add weight if you have to.
There we go. Good idea.
Right? I mean, I realize nitrous light ain't cheap, but hey, I'm good at spending other people's money. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love NHRA stock. Can I load up a roof rack with bottles? Sure. I mean, for drag and drive, it'd be rad. It'd be rad to have the bottles on the roof.
3 bottles across there with the roof rack.
That'd be
Perfect.
awesome. I love
single
it.
passes.
Yes.
I wouldn't want to be next to it, but
yeah.
Hey, something happened.
Grumpy Stillskin says, how long before it's outlawed? I don't see any reason it would be outlawed. Will there be rules that are, put in place if it becomes super popular in different racing organizations? Sure. But that won't be any different than if you're running a Pro Charge combo versus a nitrous combo versus a, turbo combo. So yeah.
If there was gonna be a quietus on it, it would have been a struggle with NHRA when we did national events. But no, it's just like anything else, whether it's nitrous, you have to respect that there's high pressure, and it's just like anything else. If you're safe with it and pay attention to what you're doing, it's really an easy process. So, and like I say, we've been, really just blessed in the whole deal with doing this. As many times as we've filled bottles and moved, I mean, we've had no incidents. You just have to pay attention to what you're doing.
Yeah. Now, one thing to note, we talked earlier about the temperature of this stuff. When the air comes out in comparison to nitrous, and they're really similar, they're within like 10 degrees or something. Keep in mind that nitrous is like never above 1,000 psi. Usually 940, 950 is, sort of where you run your bottle pressures. So significantly lower pressure. And nitrous burns are a real thing. Like, you have to be careful of, right? If you crack a bottle open, this is still very cold. But keep in mind that from the regulator out at that point, it's it's 100 and something psi. It's
0
still
to
really
100.
cold. It's nowhere near as bad as getting blasted with a nitrous jet. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like anything, you're going to want to be safe, obviously, but these tanks are also very similar to the ones that are used to hold hydrogen in buses and everything else. Our friend Mike Copeland, who has been building nitrogen nitrogen systems, sorry, not nitrogen, hydrogen systems, to run naturally aspirated and supercharged engines on hydrogen to be zero emissions. They run the same kind of tank, and to be certified, quote unquote, to be safe on the roads, they're running a tank that looks exactly the same. They're just a little bit bigger around, and they are fully legal for DOT use and all those things. So so these containers are very strong. They are not there's nothing sketchy about that part of it. You know what I mean?
It's aircraft stuff. So
yeah. This is, these tanks are meant to take abuse with this kind of pressure inside them and survive it. So you're good to go on that for sure. And like in the truck, you guys have 3 bottles, right?
we do.
Yeah.
We can do what we're doing off of 2 bottles, but it's better to have more volume in case we get in a bind and they call us back up there in 15 minutes to run like a final round or something. We want to make sure that we're not going to get caught, without air. So
Yep.
some of the bracket
Makes sense.
races, gets to the end of the night, the track owner, manager, they're trying to get everybody right back up there. So we wanted to put the 3rd bottle in. Plus, we wanted to prepare the truck to go quarter mile with the weight in it proper to make sure that it's going to be the same 8th mile, 60 foot, and the launch, and how everything is set and the suspension.
Because your plan is to run it on Mega Week this year, the Rocky Mountain Race Week,
We're
Race
not running
Week
this
double.
truck on Mega Week. It'll be
No,
the
but you're going to
truck.
run your truck.
That's
the
correct.
blue truck.
Kinsey will be driving. Yes.
Yep. So you're going to still be running this system, just a single version.
That's right.
This year.
2 bottles.
So
2 bottles in it.
So mom and dad are going to be cruising along and enjoying the minivan life while she's racing. Is that how this is going?
She's been driving my truck all this year. She just turned 16. I get in it to go to Kansas City. They loaded, Tina and her loaded the Nova and the truck in the trailer. And so I get up there to go make my first time trial. I see something out of the corner of my eye, look up, and she's got a sticker she made and it says Kinsey's truck up on the roll cage. And I thought, okay, I've lost.
You've lost, buddy.
She loves it. She wants to do wheelies just like I did, for all these years. And that's her. She loves it. She's ate up with this stuff.
I love it. You guys are doing it right. How near and dear to my heart it is for women to be in racing, whether it's drag racing or anything else. And we do the Wicked Chick Awards and all that. Yep. In fact, I think I'm wearing a Wicked Chick shirt under this hoodie tonight. But it is an important thing, and I know you guys like real strong family, racing together is the key. And I love it. You guys do a great job. And
anytime for the track, I'm all for it. Let's go. At least I don't have to worry about where else is she,
yeah,
she loves it. So
exactly. I love that. I love that. Yeah, Shelly and Kurt were asking what was the weight of one bottle. It was 24 pounds for one of the new bottles,
empty.
right?
Yeah, new bottles 24 pounds. Full, it's 38 pounds.
Air
So
actually weighs
it does.
something.
There is a weight
It
to
does.
air, no question.
But it's not 1,000 pounds like people were
No.
saying. Pounds
Oh
of
my
weight.
God. I was just going to say
People are
the
lying.
funniest thing is a guy was like 3,300 pounds of air in a tank. That thing's going to weigh 9,900 pounds. I'm like, oh my God. And I don't know if he was serious or just, I don't know. I'm going to like to say he's,
You know how people are.
Yes.
Bless their hearts.
Yes.
Grumpy Stiltskin says, I see a lot of power adders going up on Racing Junk for sale. That's good. I'll take all of those too, because I want all of the things. Yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it. I don't know. Actually, this is weird. This hurt. I don't know what to do with myself right now. I have literally like I said earlier, I'm a nitrous guy. I love nitrous. I am a use nitrous on everything guy. So the Pro Charge car has a nitrous plate. The turbo car has a nitrous plate. Everything has nitrous, whether it's just nitrous or other power adders, and everything gets nitrous. But you couldn't do nitrous with this. Well, there wouldn't be any reason to do nitrous.
There wouldn't be any
with
reason
this,
because
right?
the airflow is only going to make so much power. Like whatever
Right.
if it's 2,400 horsepower you're trying to make, you just turn the air up.
Yeah.
But you got to remember that it's only going to flow so much air. So if you had 2,400 horsepower and then you added a 600 shot, it's not going to make 3,000 because you still got to
you're not flowing enough extra air to do that. Right. Yeah, you'd have to. That would require way more math than this. Yeah. I went to public school. Like, I'm out. Dude, I love it. Ricky Manor says, I'm a supercharger guy. Who isn't? I mean, come on. And he says, nitrous means that you're going to need to know how to turn a wrench when you're changing engines. Come on. Nitrous is good and safe and happy if you use it the way it's supposed to. But Shelly says I can just call it nitrous if it makes me feel better. That's it. That's what we'll do. I'll do a dual system and one of the bottles I'll paint blue and put NOS on it and it'll be fine. Can you imagine? People would lose their minds. They wouldn't know what we were doing. Oh my God. We break the internet.
Fun fact here, and Mark can explain this better, but the owner of the company, the half owner used to own NOS systems. Him and Mike Thermos, which Chad.
Yep. Yeah, I know Mike really well. Mike's awesome.
For car. And Dale was the money guy. Mark, you know him?
The guy. Yes.
Yeah.
But he owns this company. So
yeah,
same guy.
And he, I've heard stories about Dale from Mike about how he is a genius. Mike is one of those guys that always downplays his brain power. And how much of an impact he's had on the world of horsepower, but it's insane. I will tell you that I laughed because Nitrous Outlet or Nitrous Supply or one of them had a nitrous system set up on a table next to their little podcast deal at PRI, and they had bottles under the table and they were, tooting them, to make it be fun. But that intake and everything was bolted to the table. So it would just fog up in the air. That's cool. But it's way cooler when you're in a hotel room during the MPMC Media Trade Conference with Mike Thermos, and he lights one off and hovers that bitch in the middle of the living room of an Embassy Suites hotel room and hovers that sucker about 5 feet off the ground for like 20 seconds. and then shuts it down and slowly lowers it back down to the coffee table. And Brian Loans goes, man, that's really cool. So what is that? Just compressed air does the same thing? And Mike looks at him and then looks at me like, who is this idiot you brought in here with you, Chad? And I looked at Brian and said, you're not getting giggly because it's compressed air, my friend. It's nitrous. And Loans literally opened the door and stepped out of the room like all freaked out. Like we were somehow going to die because we, whatever. We're not the same. We are not
Good
the
times.
same.
Good story.
It was awesome. Mike Thermos is the man. I love him. So, and Dale and Carl, who started this compressed air supercharging, dude, my hat is figuratively off to you guys
That
for
regulator,
being really
that regulator is a piece
thinkers.
of work. That thing.
Yeah.
Regulators.
Yeah.
People all the time say, well, it's easy. I thought about doing it. Well, go right ahead. Because it's probably not going to happen. They've been working on it a long time.
Yeah.
And I love it. I think this is really interesting. I love that it works so well. I love that you guys are doing it. Let's face it. We're in the heyday of making power, right? It's never been easier to make horsepower on engines ever in history. Okay. And regardless of what everybody wants to claim of the doom and gloom of the government's taking over our cars and all those things, it's also never been possible to have more power or performance out of a new car than it is today. Now, I mean, don't get me wrong. This is a 69 Camaro convertible sitting behind me. It's the sexiest, best car on the planet, period. This actual one. As far as I'm concerned, there is no better car in the world. Second would be my dad's 68 Z28 that's sitting 2 cars over from it. But a new Camaro, analytically speaking, is better from a power perspective, better from a comfort perspective, better from a performance perspective. It just is. Okay. We romanticize how good the old stuff is and it has a soul and I love it. But the reality is modern stuff is better than any old car. Now, everything goes along with that, right? Pro Chargers are better now than they were 20 years ago. Turbos are better than they were 20 years ago. Nitrous is better than it was 20 years ago. This is better than it was 20 years ago. And I don't believe that this is going to push every other power adder out the window. Nobody else in their right mind does either. We all know that nitrous guys love nitrous and turbo guys love turbos and and screw blower guys love screw blowers, whatever. And that's okay. It's what makes the world go round. But this is just another really cool, really interesting system that is available. It's not cheap, but in the long run, the cost of ownership will even out to being arguably cheaper. I mean, Mark, if you were running nitrous on your combo to run, your 450s every run, I'm sure you could do the math for the last coming up on 5 years of how much nitrous you would have had to have spent.
Yeah.
And
repairs. And my wife would probably say no.
Right.
My wife would be like, where's the next engine? I have the opposite
Let's
problem.
do something different. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Well, this is the different. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you guys coming on tonight for sure. This was fun. I hope people learned something, and, we can send them back to look at this some more, but, you guys, man, what great information. I really, really appreciate you guys being on here tonight for sure.
Well, thank you for having us. Very much. We appreciate you. Good job.
Absolutely. You guys are welcome anytime. I would love to do, have you guys on another show later on in the season to talk about this or any of the other racing stuff you guys are doing. I know that you guys have full schedules for the coming year. Dave, I'll keep you and Tina informed because I've got some other stuff that you guys are going to want to know about that's here close that should be fun as well. And Yeah, so who knows? We'll have more and more drag and drive compressed air supercharged cars coming down the pipe, I'm sure.
We'll see.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, tell Tina we said hello. And I know she's been in the chat as well, and we appreciate her being here. Again, Mark, Dave, appreciate you guys very much. And we'll see you next time.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
You too. All right, gang. That was it. Compressed air supercharging. Mark and Dave, what a great duo to have on the show tonight. Really, really appreciate them being here. It was an interesting discussion. I hope you guys learned something cool, and go check it out. Again, it's CASupercharging.com. So compressedairsupercharging.com. Go check it out and take a look, because this is some interesting stuff and a really, really unique way to make big power. So with that, this has been Triple B. We'll see you next time.